blood of the martyrs commands you.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 paranormal movies inspired by true events.
Please, can you come and take a look? Of course we will.
For this list, we'll be looking at various supernatural movies that are based on actual reported hauntings. Which of these stories do you find most fascinating? Let us know in the comments below. Number 10, Poltergeist. A classic of the paranormal genre, Poltergeist helped further establish Steven Spielberg as a creative behemoth, even though he was only credited as a writer and producer. The movie's story is original, but it was allegedly inspired by a haunting that occurred on Long Island in the late 50s. The hauntings affected the Herman family, who resided within the Seaford area. The Hermans were afflicted with various paranormal phenomenon, and it eventually got so bad that a priest was called to investigate.
After this phenomenon went on for several weeks, the Hermans became confused, perhaps even a little bit frightened.
The link with Poltergeist primarily lies in the house's suburban location, the presence of parapsychologists, and the attachments that the ghosts shared with the house's young inhabitants. As far as we know, though, the Hermans didn't hop through demonic portals. Number 9, The Rite. In Mikael Hofström's The Rite, Anthony Hopkins plays an exorcist, Father Lucas Trevant.
Speak of the devil.
The movie seems like just another exorcism film, but it's actually quite unique in that it's based on a true story. The movie's loosely adapted from a book called The Rite, The Making of a Modern Exorcist, which was written by American journalist Mike Baglio. The book is about an exorcism-practicing priest named Father Gary Thomas, who was made into protagonist Michael Kovac for the film.
I failed her. You did what you thought was best.
Baglio personally attended some exorcisms conducted by Father Gary, who later worked as a creative consultant on the film. According to him, the exorcism scenes within The Rite are, quote, very accurate.
We're standing the law, the opponent's right.
Number 8, Child's Play. The soul of a serial killer inhabits the body of a plastic doll after practicing a voodoo ritual, and said doll goes on a killing spree.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
The story is obviously ridiculous, but it also shares eerie similarities with that of Robert the Doll, who allegedly terrorized the Otto family in the early 1900s. Numerous people reportedly witnessed the doll moving and laughing, and its child owner blamed various misadventures around the house on Robert, much like how Andy blames things on Chucky.
It was Robert, he would tell his parents. Robert did it.
Both stories also contain the use of supernatural magic, as Robert was allegedly given to the Otto family by a disgruntled servant who practiced voodoo. Take an old creepy story, add in some social commentary about 80s consumerism, and you have Child's Play.
I don't believe it. I just don't believe it.
Number 7, Silent Hill. Okay, obviously Silent Hill is based on a video game first and foremost, but that doesn't mean that anyone adapting it couldn't pull from other sources too.
Sheriff!
Screenwriter Roger Avery was inspired by the real ghost town of Centralia, Pennsylvania, and used it to model Silent Hill. In fact, the movie's working title was Centralia. A mine fire began underneath the town in May of 1962, but it wasn't until the early 80s that the devastating effects became apparent.
The results were disastrous. Roads began to swell and crack open, releasing toxic fumes.
The fire continues to rage under the town's streets to this day, at one point opening up a large sinkhole that bellowed dangerous plumes of carbon monoxide. The government spent over $40 million relocating residents, and Centralia quickly became the ghost town that it is today.
The government offered residents a substantial cash sum to leave.
Number 6, The Possession. This movie, starring The Walking Dead's Jeffrey Dean Morgan, is very loosely based on the story of the Dybbuk box. Previously owned by a man named Kevin Manis, the Dybbuk box was sold on eBay with a tantalizing story. According to Manis, the wine cabinet was once owned by a Holocaust survivor and is inhabited by a malevolent spirit that causes supernatural occurrences.
The doors opened, and it was just like a cold breeze coming out.
Further owners of the cabinet continued Mannis's claims, and the Dybbuk box soon became a sensation in paranormal circles. The story was even sold to Hollywood, who looked to capitalize on its success with The Possession. However, Mannis has since admitted that he made the whole thing up to sell an old cabinet.
The one thing I wanted to do was to impress upon him how important it was that he get rid of the box.
Number 5. The Entity. Released just a few months after Poltergeist was the more adult-oriented The Entity. In this one, a single mother named Carla is harassed by a malevolent spirit. The movie is based on Frank DiFelitta's novel of the same name, which itself was inspired by the story of Doris Byther. Back in 1974, Byther contacted a parapsychologist with claims that an invisible entity had mistreated her.
We were in the kitchen talking with her about more of her experiences, alleged experiences, and a lower cupboard door flew open.
The parapsychologist and his team of investigators visited Byther's house over the next 10 weeks and confirmed that it was indeed haunted. However, there's little evidence to support this, and other professionals remain dubious about Byther's claims.
And it was animated, and then it was gone.
Number 4. The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Despite its title, this movie takes the age-worn exorcism story and steers it in another direction. For one thing, it's more of a courtroom drama than a typical horror movie. The character of Emily Rose and the general story of the movie was largely inspired by the case of Annalise Michel.
Emily?
Don't touch me!
A young woman from Bavaria, Michel had temporal lobe epilepsy and was diagnosed with psychosis. When traditional medication failed to treat her symptoms, her family brought in exorcists, believing that she had been possessed.
I firmly believe that Father Moore's suggestion killed her.
Objection, Your Honor!
After a staggering 67 exorcisms, Michelle passed away from malnutrition and general neglect. Both her parents and the so-called exorcists were given suspended prison sentences on charges of negligent homicide.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of negligent homicide.
Number 3. The Conjuring. Perhaps the most popular haunting movie of the 2010s, The Conjuring has its roots in real life.
Well, we've been called demonologists. It's one name for us. Ghost hunters, paranormal researchers.
Kooks.
Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga play real paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who found great fame and success throughout the 1970s. They began their careers by investigating the Annabelle doll, whose story was made into the popular Conjuring spin-off series. The Perron family from the first movie is also real, and they suffered large amounts of paranormal activity in their Rhode Island home. When the Warrens investigated, they deducted that a witch named Bathsheba had cursed the land upon which the house rested.
Well, Lorraine and I both feel that what your house needs is a cleansing, an exorcism.
Lorraine Warren served as a creative consultant on the film, and Andrea Perron has praised it for being realistic and true to history. Number 2. The Exorcist. Like many classic movies, The Exorcist is based on a novel. William Peter Blatty published his book just 2 years before the movie was released, and the story was reportedly influenced by the exorcism of Roland Doe.
Mom! Oh my God, Richard!
That's one of the pseudonyms given to a young boy from Maryland who underwent numerous exorcisms in the late 1940s. Like the movie, the young boy was seen by 2 priests, and they reported that the boy was speaking in a deep voice that was not his own.
Satan, it's St. Michael, and I demand you, Satan, and the other evil spirits to leave the body.
He also cowered in fear when shown religious objects, and made objects fly across the room. Blatty also based the character of Father Merrin off of an archaeologist he met in Beirut named Gerald Harding.
I'm Father Merrin.
Come here.
Thank you.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. The Amityville Horror. One of the most successful independent movies of all time, The Amityville Horror shocked the world in 1979 and made its titular town a national symbol of paranormal activity. The movie is based on a book written by Jay Anson, which covers the claims made by the Lutz family. The Lutzes had moved into the house in which Ronald DeFeo Jr. killed his entire family. The Lutzes lived there for just under a month before fleeing in terror. According to them, the house was haunted and they were being terrorized by malevolent paranormal forces. While the book is an undeniable page-turner, it's been subjected to large amounts of criticism, with many skeptics doubting the Lutz's story.
George and Kathy moved to California, claiming that they needed to escape the influence of the house and the glare of publicity as their story gathered momentum.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.